morning. Um, so yeah, people were talking to me just about the things I was posting yesterday. The depressed thing, and I was posting about some like conspiracy theories that I came across. So I kind of just wanted to go on live this morning and at least talk about the depression post that I made. Just to kind of talk about it and see if what I share about it can help anyone else find a deeper understanding for what they're going through. Because as you've noticed, I have been all about that shit. Lately, just kind of like providing the comfort of knowing, like, same way somebody like you can go through this, somebody like me can go through this, and nothing makes us any different from the experience, from experiencing the experience. So yeah, I just kind of want to talk about it because, like I said, hearing that idea on it just really helped me. Just really resonated with me. It just really made me feel like I've always had an understanding of what depression was. Just never really grasped the concept because I didn't know that I wasn't who I was meant to be. So also just to kind of get this started the right way, everything that I have been posting has nothing to do with my last relationship and everything to do with the cycles that I just experienced from men that I love in my life, from father, brother, significant other. You feel me? So yes, there were patterns within my last relationship that did fall into the same cycles, but that is nothing to do with that person and everything to do with me for not handling things that I should be aware of the way that I know I should handle them. But yeah, so boom, getting into depression. Like, so I've been depressed. I've been like dealing with depression since a very, very young age. I was one of those children who grew up in a toxic environment, knew nothing but that, seen death at a young age, a lot of violence, abuse, things like that became normal to me because I was around it so much. And I numbed myself to what it was because I was just like, oh, this is what shit is. You feel me? This is how shit gotta be. You gotta deal with it. You gotta get over it. Wah, wah, wah. So, yeah, I just kind of grew up with, like, my mother and father arguing all the time. Then they split up when I was about 8. Shit got real different around then. And just taking in, because I'm like 7, 8, and 9 years younger than my siblings, so they were all like pretty much leaving the crib when I was growing up. And unfortunately for me, that just meant that my parents like gave up by the time it came to raising me, and I had to figure out a lot of shit on my own that I shouldn't have had to feel like I figure out at such a young age because I didn't have any fucking experience about life. But today I stand in being grateful for that because it's given me a sense of independence. It's given me a sense of like trusting myself and just knowing that. So like growing up, I grew up always having to deal with the consequences of somebody else's actions. And you get like you just don't fuck with your people. You feel me? You get defensive, and then in that you unknowingly become like you victimize yourself in a lot of situations by trying to protect yourself against allowing anybody else's choices to affect you. And when they do, it affects you a lot more than it really should, because for one, like, nothing anyone does that isn't directly done to you is really to be taken personal by you. And even in the sense that it is, the choices they make have nothing to do with you. If you know that you don't provoke certain things out of people intentionally, that's just their patterns and how they've grown up defending themselves and everything like that. So, I've learned a lot over time from my situation, but before coming to a place of awakening and being aware, you just really don't know shit. All you know is what you know, and sometimes what you know ain't the best shit to be aware of. So yeah, growing up, I dealt with depression. I was always I guess a spiritual being, you could say. Like, I've always seen spirits, felt energies, had premonitions. Like the life that I live now, honestly, I've dreamed this shit when I was like 6 years old, you know, in bits and pieces. And I just see now deja vu being like when you are in that moment of knowing like, oh, I just had deja vu, that you're on the right path, you know, regardless of what your path look like, you're on the right path in that moment at least. So yeah, like just dealing with depression growing up, always came at a time when right after feeling depressed, like my life changed for the better. So just understanding that like me always feeling like depression comes from like for so long growing up, it was just from a lot of suppressing and not knowing how to let out how I feel, because anytime I would speak, I would be silenced. Anytime I would act out of a place of truth in defense for myself, to protect myself, I would be told I was wrong and I would be punished for it. So until about like maybe 20, maybe 21, I was depressed and didn't know it, because I was just cycling through, just like, oh, I gotta get through it, I gotta figure this out, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. At like 19, I started painting, and like from that moment, I gained a new understanding for myself and for life through the like metaphors that painting represented for me. Like it taught me patience. It taught me to see things from a new perspective. It taught me to be open to learning like what I'm capable of doing by applying what I've learned through art to life. It just really opened me up spiritually too, because I just genuinely feel like that feeling you get, that nostalgic feeling you get when you create, is the next best thing to like God and blessing you and everything. So I just really like, you know, started changing from making art or whatever, and just became more open to things and seeing things differently. And from that, you begin to like evaluate your past, and from that you begin to try to understand what made you differently, because from understanding when I have different techniques and when I do certain things, it has a different outcome. Applying it to life is like, oh well, if this was done differently, maybe this would have happened, or if this was done differently, maybe it would have happened. And you always start with if other people would have done things, because like I said, I grew up so young that I just had no choice but to deal with the consequences of everyone's actions, because my siblings, they were all gone, so they weren't really around to teach me after a while. But what they did instill in me when they were around was very like pivotal for me. And like seeing my parents go through what they were going through, now put into perspective of me being 25, of just like, y'all were just kind of young and lost, you feel me? And they kept trying to create children for the idea of like, we're going to do better this time than the last time, and didn't really understand the only way to do better is to be better. So yeah, I grew up in a very like prime position for understanding my generational trauma and my parents' patterns. And I'm just grateful now that I was always me, you know. I always thought how I think now. I always felt how I feel now. I always was as intense and as deep as I am today. It was all internal. So I always felt like everything had to be internalized. I didn't talk for a long time. And when I did talk, I developed a stutter, because it was so much trying to come out, I guess, that I just stuttered, and I hated it. So I didn't talk even more. I was always like funny and cool around my friends, but I just never really was like a people's person. I was always big on energies and shit like that. I just never understood it because no one taught me. So there just came a time where I had to take accountability and teach it myself. And this is, you know, what led up to it today. But yeah, so just giving a slight background, but just talking about depression. I've always, like, my mother was a very depressed woman, but she was more so suppressed. My father was verbally abusive and mentally abusive. My father is a black man, my mother is Caucasian. And she knew that she had a good heart. She came from a not so good background. And she knew she always had a good heart, and she knew she always wanted to stand up for us, and she wanted to do this and do that. But my father would just put her down a lot. As a woman, he didn't value her enough. He didn't respect her enough. He didn't appreciate her enough. And that unfortunately became my toxic cycles, because what he would do is, like, the ways he would show gratitude or appreciation was just never genuine. And I high key feel like a part of that comes from him just wanting to fuck a white woman, to say he fucked a white woman, and unfortunately you had kids with that white woman. And once you did, you didn't want to be the guy who had multiple baby moms, so you kept having babies with this white woman. And you know how I feel about white people is my own opinion formed from my experiences, but I just feel like, I choose not to date white people because I don't respect them. I don't fuck with them. I don't, whatever the case. And he just, he started a different pattern of toxicity with that behavior. And just neither, like, her not choosing, her wanting to be a good mother, and her wanting to be present, her wanting her kid's father in their lives. She didn't choose to love herself. She didn't choose to do what was best for herself. And she didn't choose to, she didn't know that doing that would be choosing what would be best for us. So she stayed, and unfortunately we just seen a lot of toxicity growing up, which in my brother instilled a lot of toxic masculinity in him, and in us just kind of made us be a little weaker than I feel like black women should be. And that does come from just, having a white mother raising black kids, and she doesn't really know the full extent to what being black is, because she just, she's seen things from her good heart or whatever the case, and just knew that the shit white people was doing was wrong, but she didn't really understand the action that needed to be taken. And yeah, so my father just made her feel very weak. At the end of the day, she allowed herself to feel this way, but she already came from feeling weak because of the views that she had and her parents putting things on her. She's the only woman in her family, and her siblings has all brothers, and just was in the midst of just trying to find herself and love herself, and just unfortunately went about it the wrong ways, like a lot of us do, and just didn't feel like she had the strength to stand in how she felt and what she thought was right or whatever, because there was just a lot going against her as a white woman with black kids, that it just weighed on her, and she didn't have a proper outlet for it. My dad was just not the nigga for that. He was never really present. If he was in the crib, he was playing the game all day. She was taking care of us hands on. Like, my mother was a great mother until my mother let herself believe she was broken. And unfortunately, when she allowed herself to believe she was broken is when it was their time to raise me. And my father gave up, found another family, because I guess he just felt as though the one he created the first time was done wrong, and just wanted to correct himself, and not understanding that you are who needed to be corrected, not the decisions that you make, because you can't leave shit behind. Like, you can't just do that. But that's neither here nor there right now. So yeah, I just came up in building on a toxic foundation, and not knowing any better until I got into art, and from there, like, I just veered into different artists and their lives, and just taking what I felt and what I've experienced, and understanding, like, oh, I'm not the only person that has gone through this. And then fortunately, the internet turned into a source of just people sharing nothing but experiences on there. And although most of them are negative or full of illusion or just a bunch of bullshit, I just began, once I took the risk to, once I got fired from my job that I got fired from, that started me to getting into art, I just always went with my gut feeling, didn't really know much about God at the time, but just knew that my intuition led me to good places. But then when I started dating people in the same realm of what I was doing, like, I've had the last relationship I was in was my third relationship with a male. And it was just, so they all have the same patterns of me. So I began, when I did art, like, I was very full in myself. Like, I was in my presence. I started having a no tolerance perception on things. Like, I was really one and done with niggas. And it was just because, like, I refused to be my mother. You know, I refused to be treated like that. I refused to have her outcome because I knew that I was better than that and stronger than that or whatever. Because I was always the one who she would come to, you know, she would see me as her strength. I had a sister who was in an abusive relationship growing up, and I was always her rock to lean on, and shit like that. You know, my siblings just always knew that I was like something, but just didn't really know what I was, you know, and didn't really know how to like appreciate me or, you know, push that out of me and want me to be myself, because they were just too busy trying to, you know, figure out what their path is and what their purpose is and what they should be doing, to be better, because none of us wanted to repeat the cycles that we were, you know, we grown up in. We like resented our family, you know, our parents and everything. So not knowing, and like, you know, unbeknownst to us, you become the things that you hate over time, because you focus so much on trying to avoid it that you just keep moving around it, and that becomes your source of inspiration. So you just unknowingly become that. And with that being said, I became my mother. I went from having no tolerance to cutting bullshit off, calling bullshit out when I seen it, this and that, to then feeling like when I treated people like that, I just always, I hurt a lot of people, and I just never wanted to hurt people. I just never had that intention in me. Broken hearts and this and that, and just not understanding that with giving the truth, because it's not like I would just be like, you know, one and done. I would tell people about themselves, like, bro, like, this is why I can't fuck with you. This, and this. We can't be friends, or we can't do this because of that. And they would hate me, you know, but then a cycle would pass, and then they would always come back and thank me for being as real as I was or whatever, and me just being in a place of ego because I was protecting myself out of fear and out of not knowing what love was. I was just on some like, nigga, fuck you, I'm done, don't even come back with the thank yous and this and that, nigga, whatever, you feel me, you're welcome. And, you know, feeling like that was wrong, I went into beginning the journey that, you know, that you see that where I'm at now, of just trying to stretch my boundaries and, you know, accept more from people and not be so cutthroat and not be so this, not be so that. And today I am standing in that as understanding like what too far is, what stretching myself over the capacity of that I am meant to is, and understanding that that is not what I'm supposed to do. I'm happy that I did it because I went from one extreme to the other. So now somewhere in the middle of those two, is my balance. And that's where I can retract back a bit. But it's like a rubber band. When you stretch a rubber band too far, the bitch gonna pop. So yeah, just understanding like, you know, I've gone too far. I've learned all of my lessons from like relationships with friends and romantic relationships, but getting to the depression side into it, there was always a state of depression for me when I would be coming out of these cycles with people. And I always just felt like I always related depression to being very sad and feeling bad and sympathy and victimizing and things like that, and not understanding. Like within me, though, I always felt like I had to feel this and I had to just let myself like filter through it, you know, from after trying to distract myself from it with creating more art and this and that. I lost my purpose on why I was originally making art. I lost my purpose for why I was doing things I was doing. I was just trying to do things that pleased other people, which then led to me losing sight of myself. So yeah, when I would go through these depressive states after like a breakup, or I've had a miscarriage before, the recent one that I've had last year, and my first miscarriage that I had was honestly a very pivotal moment for me of just understanding like life and death, and understanding like it woke me up, you know, and been like, I don't want to have a baby by this nigga. I'm not in a position to take care of a child. I'm not this, I'm not that. I began to be happy that it happened, because had it not happened, I wouldn't have had the awakening that I did. And when I went through the depression, like, you know, I lost friends and didn't really fuck with my family, so I just had a very like sharp energy towards them because of how they handled me while I was depressed and whatever the case. And coming out of that, I got better friends, I made better decisions, I stood in myself, and I was doing that when I was alone, and I understood how to do that alone. But then when it would come to another relationship, I would intimidate people, and because my energy was so strong, and I never wanted to make a man feel like he was any less of a man than he was. So I would try to like be a woman and think that that meant to be submissive, and to think that that meant to cater to a man's ego and this and that. And I became the woman that my mother showed me that she was. And because when I was single, I became the woman that one of my sisters who passed away, God rest her soul, she showed me to like, listen, play the game, don't let the game play you. So, when I would be in a relationship, it's like, I'm not trying to play no games, you feel me? Like, I'm trying to fuck with something that's like worth fucking with. So yeah, I became my mother, unfortunately, in a lot of ways. And now today I'm realizing that and understanding, my depressive state comes from not standing in my full self at all times and being too considerate of what others would take from receiving truth, God honest truth. However, I have to deliver it to them for them to hear me. And now understanding like that's not my fault. Because motherfuckers don't care how they talk to me when I'm depressed. Motherfuckers don't care how they treat me when I'm depressed. Motherfuckers don't care. They only like me when I am in my full self, even if they don't really like that version of me, because it makes them feel insufficient. But they respect me because they only understand respect as coming from a source of fear and things like that. So, today I just stand in having the introspective of all things existing around me and within me, and getting back to the deep rest being deep rest. Every time I've gone through a state of depression, I had to slow down. I was moving too fast before, just, doing shit. And it slowed me down and made me pay attention. It made me feel things that I was ignoring. It just all would hit me at once. And I will say over time, my states of depression got a little lighter because after coming out of it, I gained more knowledge about myself. I stood in myself stronger and things like that. So coming across that the other day, it just confirmed for me that I know what I'm going through internally. I may not be so conscious of the 3D world, but internally I always knew that like I just wasn't doing something right. And I have to evaluate all of this and see what I can correct moving forward. But I have to do it at my own time. I can't rush it. I can't force it. And the only time I ever felt like I had to is because I was around people. So I would separate myself from people for a year, 2 years, 6 months, 3 days, however long I had to think my own opinion, to feel my own energy, to make decisions based off of myself only. And my last relationship was my first time trying to be depressed around somebody. And it was very hard for me. It was very hard because I was faced with like the last phase of my family traumas, because I knew enough to know better, but it was just like, okay, like let's know what to do when we come to these when these lessons come to us. So yeah, I had a lot of struggles with being myself, and not only being my nice self, but being myself, being my honest self, being my true self, being my blunt self, being my soft self, being myself in all ways and showing someone who I am in all ways and not only the ways that they would like to see from me. So it was just very hard because nobody wants to not be liked. You feel me? Nobody wants to disappoint anyone. Nobody wants to feel like someone's ashamed because of who we are. When I got depressed, I feel like my ex just really didn't know how to handle me and just really didn't understand what depression was and associated with negative things. And I felt like, no, I have to go through this because I'm only feeling like this because I am weighing myself down with the burden of the miscarriage I had last year. And my grandmother passed away last year, and not fully dealing with that because he couldn't, he was feeling a way about what I wanted to do to express it. And I didn't want to make him feel a way because he was a part of it too. And, just trying to be mindful of other people more than I was being mindful of myself. Even though I knew that, like, I deserved to be put first. I deserved to feel this. I deserved to let this filter through. I became my mother again. But this time, I will say, as I was becoming my mother again, I said, oh, baby, fuck no. And started putting my foot down. But when I put my foot down, I was stomping. And I was crushing shit, and then that foundation that we were building on eventually crumbled because I refused to not put my foot down again, because that's not what I deserve. That's not a cycle I desire to repeat again for anybody. Because at this point now, I'm understanding that I am doing this because I don't want my child to be me, to be who I've been, because I didn't even want to be my mother. I want my child to understand that I went through what I went through to be in a better place so that they can understand what I've gone through only by me sharing experience, but not from them having to experience because I'm projecting that onto them. So I just refuse to let who I was in a relationship be, be the product of their environment growing up. And since I was aware of just what that depression looks like, I spoke on it, and I spoke on it before he was ready to hear it, I guess. So it just caused issues with us, understandably, but he projected his coping mechanisms onto me, and the things he did behind my back that he didn't want me to see, I found out about, because when God gives you someone who's going to be a catalyst in your life, you have no option but to live in truth. And I understood that, but he had to come to an understanding of that, and I bared that weight because I just wanted to, like, I seen it in him, and I saw that he was trying. I'm just like trying to teach him, but I had to just understand that the only way he would have really learned was by me not standing in my cycles, because me standing in my cycles enabled him to continually being his. And that was my mistake, and I own that. And I don't regret a thing about it. I love him to death. I will love him till the day that I die. But I am now accepting that if we don't work, it just was because it isn't meant for us to, whether that be right now or in general. But what has to work for me has to be me not allowing myself to continually exist within my cycles. And whatever comes from that, I know is what would be better for me, because I'm not continually staying in my cycles. I'm breaking them, and breaking my cycles allows no room for anyone else to exist within their cycles when they come around me. So if you choose to run from me, that's on you. You can choose to run back in that circle of your cycles, or you can choose to stand in this truth with me and take every step forward, allowing it to be the most honest step that you've taken. So when you do start to shake and you do start to fumble, that you understand that the foundation underneath you is what's weak and it's not you. And yeah, just teaching that by example of being that type of truth, and not being the truth of what my past has allowed me to be, because that's not what's true to me. That's just not what's real to me. So when I was trying to succumb to his comfort, it made me completely uncomfortable, because the things that he allows into his life, for one, I was kind of unaware of the extent to, because when you are loving someone from a long distance, you don't really see the actual partakings of their life. So when I came out here, I was expecting one thing, which was one thing I did wrong, was having expectations and not being completely open to what I was about to receive, and allow it to come to me and to be handled with a place of peace and assurance, and not protection and defense. So, I came out here and was just surrounded by a lot of triggers, a lot of things that I purposely separated myself from, because it just had no good doings for me. And I disciplined myself to not partake in a lot of things that, coming out here, in order to have a happy relationship, I would have had to be a part of. And I'm just not here for that. It doesn't work for me. And trying to do that, just I became numbed, because I was trying to be resilient to it, and not have it affect me. But then after a while, that weight just got heavy, and once that weight got heavy, the weight from all things that was burdening me became realistic, and the weight it was more than what I thought it was, because I was lying to myself about how okay that I was, you know, and how I felt about things. And you know, that turned into me having a sharp tongue, because I had to put my foot down. I had to tell him, like, you know, I'm depressed because partially because of what you're doing. I'm depressed partially because of what you're not doing. I'm depressed because of what this is showing me, you know, from my family traumas. I'm just feeling very depressed. And I need you to understand that this is not me in full. This is just a part of me, but this is a part of me when I am not existing in my full self. So understand that I don't have the comfort that I need to be myself around you. So I'm not making decisions that I know are better for me. I'm not making decisions that I know will get me out of this downfall that I was in, because a lot of people may have forgotten, like, I was on the tattoo tour before coming out here, and the tattoo tour just didn't go as I expected. So I felt like a failure because I had expectations again, and just didn't allow things to come to me as they were meant to, and just wanted a certain goal to be reached. And when that wasn't reached, I felt like nothing, you know, like I felt like I had my dream in my hands and it slipped right through. So then when shortly after that I had a miscarriage, it just took away my understanding for what I was meant to create. Because if I can't create a path for myself that led to my dream being fulfilled, then, and I can't create what my body is designed to do, then what can I fucking do? What is my worth? What is my purpose? So when I began feeling like that about myself, it allowed room for him to think that of me and to treat me based on that thinking. And he's not wrong. You know, I do hold him accountable fully for what he did, but he's not wrong for treating me how I was treating myself, because I now understand that I had to see that and feel that in order to get the fuck out of it. Because the only way that I really know how to overcome adversity is to have my back against the wall and feel like I have to fight my way out. I am going to screen record this live too. But yeah, so I did that, and that was my way of learning. And my way of learning was to fight my way out of it. And in order to fight my way out of it, I had to fight the love of my life. And fighting for that love became fighting his demons for him. And I just got tired because I got my own motherfucking demons. And these motherfuckers ain't shit to play with. You feel me? My demons are very dark places to be in, but I'm not scared to look them in the face and tell them, you will not overcome me. So I had that same bravery for him, because I felt like, you know, if you understood your demons, you will understand mine. And, you know, just wanted to I just wanted to love him as his full true self, because I wanted him to love me as my full true self, not understanding that I wasn't even being my full true self, even though I was showing him a very honest part of me. Because I wasn't standing in what I knew better than, and didn't allow what I was actually supposed to learn to come to me, because I was so focused on being defensive and being like, I'm not about to go through this shit again. I am not about to do this. I'm not about to da-da-da. So yeah, so understanding that to be depressed is to be equivalent to deep rest. I was depressed for this last year and a half. And I was, you know, still going, still trying to do shit, but I didn't allow I was doing it because I felt like me and my relationship needed that. I wasn't doing it because I felt like I needed it. So I wasn't basing these decisions to, like, how to go about it around me and my spiritual being and my energy and what I, you know, was ready to fulfill. So I wasn't being realistic. I wasn't being honest. I wasn't being true. And Jeff Foster's understanding for depressed to be deep rest, because you need to recharge your energy from holding either up a lifestyle that isn't meant to be held. So you became that foundation rather than standing on that foundation. And also to recharge yourself, to have enough energy moving forward to fulfill your purpose, and to have the confidence and, you know, all of the positive aspects of yourself. You stand in it. But if you're too weak to get out of bed, and you're too weak to even think straight, and you're too weak to even like have the energy to want to open your eyes every day, then you won't be strong enough to stand in your truth, because sometimes the truth looks a little scary, and you have to have enough energy in you to gather the confidence that you need to know that your truth is what it is for a reason, and your journey has been what it's been for a reason, designed specifically for you. And those who don't understand it aren't meant to right now, but they will see you standing in it and begin to think about what they're doing, and to think about what's going on around them, and to think if they should be doing what you're doing. And it's not for you to instill that knowledge in them, beyond anything else other than being just a solid example for them to see. So yeah, I just, it really resonated with me, and I really appreciated that information. So I just shared it because I am here, honestly, to just be a reflection of all that exists. And let that be good or bad, I know that I know who I am and what my purpose is, and I understand that we all go through the same shit, regardless of what makes us feel this way or makes us learn from this. We all go through the same things. It all has the base principle, meaning underneath it, and that is where we need to dig. We need to dig to that root so that we can understand each other by understanding ourselves, and having empathy for each other, not sympathy, and having patience for each other, and understanding, and just wanting to love each other, because we know that we needed love ourselves. We didn't need tough love. We needed to be heard, seen, and understood. We needed affirmations, you know. We just needed to feel like we aren't the only person going through this, to openly go through this and allow people to see this in us, and allow them to see that in themselves, and just begin that cycle going of just healing, and understanding that healing doesn't mean that you are wounded or broken. It just means that there's a lot of trauma within you, and it just needs to be healed by being reversed, by being unlearned. And you break that pattern by putting your foot down somewhere, and you start a new one by taking steps in another direction. So yeah, I just posted that, and everything that I've been working on. If you haven't noticed, I'm changing my whole aesthetic. I'm changing everything that I do, because I wanted to source around peace. I wanted to source around love. I wanted to source around transparency, so that everyone can feel like they relate to me, and not see me as their guidance, but to see me as the source of what is within them. Because if the bad that I experience is within you, then the good that comes from it for me is within you too. You just have to find that strength. You have to dig through the walls and the barriers that you've built, to protect the inner you, and break them enough to let that light shine through, for you to understand the light is within you. So the guidance that you need is coming from your gut. It's coming from the source of you. So yeah, I thoroughly resonate with, to be depressed means you need deep rest. And moving forward, I just embrace the idea of depression, because I now am not scared to experience it. So I won't ignore what happened, what leads up to it. I will recognize it and be able to stand in it being a part of the truth that I need to receive and reciprocate, but also understand that it only sources from, for me at least, not being honest with myself, and not being honest about how I feel, what I think is right, what I should stand in, what my purpose is, and not feel like I have the power that I do have to speak up against it, or to take action against it, or to just correct it, by not allowing it around me, and giving complete communication about why I don't need this around me. So that feeling can be sparked into others about that being wrong, and then that seed be planted, and then, eventually it'll sprout. So, I feel like a lot of people on the internet, or just in general, show the result of what they have overcame, and don't speak on the ugly journey to get to that beauty. And I just feel like that's where I become purposeful, because everything that I am in love with is a process to get there, or the process of it is what made me fall in love with the outcome, because I felt proud. I felt like I earned something. I felt like, I actually created something to be what I wanted it to be, but I allowed myself to take every necessary step to get there with no shortcuts. And then after getting there with no shortcuts, I can move forward knowing like, all right, boom. Instead of taking steps 1, 2, 3, I can go from 1 to 3 because 2 is just a bridge to get to 3. So I can embrace 1 fully and understanding that 2 can become 1. And then, step 3 becomes step 2. I break it down into just variables or whatever. So, I'm just here to be that because I wouldn't be where I'm at today, people, and be the person people think I am and everything like that if I didn't take too many steps to get here because I crawled. I took baby steps, and then now being able to be like, I can take larger steps, I can start, leaping a little bit. And it's not to say I'm overlooking anything. It's just to say that I've joined certain aspects together to become one because I understand it better. I don't have to break it down as much to gain a full understanding. But since I have done that, I do understand that some people need that. So why not share the part of the process where I did that? Because that's where a lot of people are starting. A lot of people aren't always starting where you are today, so why only push the narrative of where you are today and not push the narrative that you had to speak and be and believe to get there, so yeah, I just want people to understand that we are a lot further away from God, our higher being our higher selves than we think, because a lot of people don't even understand what their bodies are. Like, to understand that fluids from male and female can come together and create a little me and you, that's very mind-blowing to me, because I guess because I'm the carrier of that life, and having experienced death while being alive was just a super mind-blowing thing for me, because I'm like, I feel dead inside, but I'm still living, breathing, heart beating. So what the fuck is my body? What is creation? What is destruction? What is any of this? What is the meaning behind any of this? So I also came across the other day, my homie put me on an anime, and this piece of it was just explaining that love does not truly exist until death takes place, which in that aspect of the extremity, I took it as a metaphor for death taking place, as when you are depressed, you are supposed to at least let go of the old versions of you that made you feel weighed down, or the burdens that you've been carrying that made you feel weighed down and feel like you can't fly and soar and be free. So love takes place when that death transpires, because you have to let go of what isn't even you in order for you to love yourself and to love your true self by knowing who you truly are. And one way to really know who you are is to know who you are not. You don't always have to know who you are, because I feel like life is a constant journey of finding that out. But you have to at least know what you are not and what is not for you, to know what to stay away from and not allow to consume you. And that is the only way that you will, come to an understanding of what is meant for you and what has its best interest for you as it exists in your life, people, places, and things. So just now wanting to push mental health awareness in a different way and not hide any of it because I feel ashamed of it, or not hide any of it because I didn't have full understanding of it because I was running from it, or trying to create it to be this narrative that it really wasn't. I feel no need to hide any parts of myself, because nobody can judge what's true. Nobody can judge an honest outcome. The only things that people can judge are the lies that don't make sense for what you feel you need to be or exist as. So, just releasing the opportunity for anyone to judge me by being honest and true, and not allowing anything that anyone can say about me to be anything new to me because I've said it first, whether they heard me or not, or not allowing people to do things to me that I don't deserve because I'm standing in my truth and I'm showing what what is worthy of me, and not allowing anybody else to do anything that goes against that, because understanding that that's been happening since my parents have been raising me, I didn't know any better. So now that I have felt that deep feeling of fuck no, it's like, why would I want to feel that deep feeling of fuck no, or why would I want to like numb myself to feeling like, oh baby, fuck no, when I know that if I feel like this, there has to be an opposite end of it. Like there has to be a, oh hell yes, rather than a fuck no. So I just rather go towards a lot of hell yeses than fuck no's. And that's just my personal partaking of it. But yeah, like I said, coming across the deep rest thing, I just really feel like a lot of people need to stop resisting depression and stop understanding it to only be what it is, that people told them it was, and understand what it feels like inside of you. Because sometimes you just need to slow down. You moving so much and reacting to everything, and only like everything becomes muscle memory, and you're not even thinking anymore. And I honestly feel like once you lose your mind, then you lose everything else that is you, because you can't even think for yourself. You're only thinking of what people give to you to think about, and even like being on the internet, there's so much bullshit we can be distracted by, and it's because they want us to be. And when it comes to the real shit that's really going on, we only think that we can speak on it to bring enlightenment to it and give it power, and to cause change for it, when it's like, well, why don't we think that we can actually do something? Because we're still inside of a barrier of thinking that we can't go to these places and do the work that needs to be done, or thinking that we don't, like we just can't actively go do something. And that just, knowing a lot of people, for me not wanting to recently leave my fucking house because I just didn't feel safe, the next extremity is like people not feeling like they can leave their city, and then people not feeling like they can leave the country and things like that. And it's just like, that's so sad to think that we allow ourselves to be inside of these barriers because things are just difficult and we rather do what's easier. And sometimes what's easy just isn't worth it. Sometimes what's easy just isn't valuable. Sometimes what's easy just isn't what we're supposed to do, because we're supposed to challenge ourselves to know what our strength is. It's like going to the gym. How would you know that you could lift a 50-pound weight if you don't start with lifting a 10-pound weight and then a 20-pound weight? And once that gets easy, go into what's harder. So it's just like, don't limit yourself because of the way of white man thinking. Don't limit yourself because of what is given to you. You think that that's the only options. There's always another door. Sometimes that door is just a trap door that they don't want you to see, but it does still exist. You just have to look for it. You have to look beyond the illusions of what is given to you, and you just have to want to see it in order to see it. And if you don't, then you have to want to create it. And in order to do that, you have to stand in the truth of either what that lacking is or just what isn't correct, based on what you feel, think, and believe. And I can talk about this shit all day, about relating it to God and Christianity and white Jesus, and just white culture being pushed to us in a way that just feels so normalized now because we're so used to it, and not understanding that they're just trying to desensitize us to what we should feel, think, and believe, because they just always want to have a way to control us, because they know that the moment that we find strength in our minds, that we will understand that they are the inferior, and that we will figure out ways to not control them but overpower them by just being our full true selves and standing in our strength. And it's just mind-blowing to me to be this awake now, by understanding how suppressed I was, and understanding how deep I dug, I went within myself to protect myself, because I didn't want to run at the surface anymore, but I ran within myself. And there's so many depths in our mind that we can just go to, and it's like, why not explore these places? Why do we only use like a small percentage of our brain when there's a full capacity that we can embrace? Had we just not be scared, had we just ventured it off into what allows us to do that, and learn, fuck what school gives us. That's not all that we can learn, because school doesn't even teach us the fundamental aspects of life. That it doesn't teach us how to survive through life, because they don't want us to. They want us to be controlled. They want us to do what they want us to do and think what they want us to think and believe what they want us to believe. And I refuse to. I fucking refuse to. I refuse to do that in any way, shape, or form, because I don't want my kids to think that. I don't want my kids to fall into that. I just don't want my children to be me. I want them to be my lessons. I want them to be my blessings. I don't want them to be what I thought that I have been all along. And even in the moments where they may have doubt and have insecurity, I can allow them the understanding of like, you think that I'm this great, and you may feel like, I don't have imperfections because of where I'm standing in now, but it's for me to teach you that honesty of who I am, based on who I have had to be to get here, so that you can understand that you are not alone in this, that you are not the only person that goes through this, and that it takes that village of honest love and genuine support to build on, for you to feel that you can stand strong. There's nothing wrong with going to other people for love and honesty and affirmations. There's nothing wrong with that. I feel like we've just been so defensive and began to think that all we got is us, from at least the motherfuckers growing up in the hood like I did. And it's like, nah, all we have is us at the end of the day. So that decision that you have to make for yourself has to come from yourself and no one else. But that doesn't mean you can't take information given to you and opinions formed and communicated to you and against you and things like that. It doesn't mean you can't use that as like the leverage to stand on when you make your own decision, because all of that, good or bad, made you agree or disagree, and come to your own understanding. And it's just like, we learn most from our peers. We learn most from what's going on around us. We learn most from experience. So why not take others' experience? Why want to go through what other people have experienced just to learn the hard way, when you can learn from what someone's telling you? And if people aren't telling you the God honest truth about what they go through, then you don't need these people around you, because these people are only going to teach you how to be a liar. These people are only going to teach you how to succumb to depression, and how to ignore it, and how to act like it doesn't exist, and how to lie and be better and things like that. And it's like, why do you want to live a life full of lies? Why do you want to have to always figure out what the truth is? Why do you always want to always figure out what you can and can't take in, and how you should and shouldn't move around it? Sometimes you should just be able to do that shit based off knowing that shit is real, honest, and true, and boom, your decision comes naturally. It shouldn't have to be forced. It shouldn't have to be manipulated. It shouldn't have to be calculated, as much as I feel like a lot of things are today. And it's just like, it's tiring, and it's draining, and it's just discouraging. And it's just like, well, if I feel this way, I know a lot of other people feel this way about it too, because we're all going through the same fucking things. And we're all lying to ourselves about it. And I just can't be that anymore, because me lying to myself about it had me stuck for a year. Me lying to myself about it had me looking crazy for a year. Had me allowing a lot of wild shit that I wouldn't even have tolerance for any other time to come to me. And I just can't fuck with that. You feel me? I don't fuck with myself for that. That version of myself ain't me. So I'm not fucking with myself, which means that anybody that fucked with me being like that, I can't fuck with, because y'all don't fuck with me. And the moment I started being myself, y'all didn't fuck with me that much. So like, the truth and the answer is that I can't fuck with you until you become your true self, because you only want to fuck with some more lies to feel comfortable with, or you only want to fuck with what you feel like you can control. And like, I ain't the motherfucker to be controlled. So for me to even allow you to think that I am, that's only my fault. Yeah, I'm a screen record and everything and post it on my YouTube, but for me to allow you to think that of me was my fault, and I opened that door. And of course, when you open a door and you hold it for somebody, they go and walk through it. So It's just like, you have to hold yourself accountable and not blame yourself. One thing that I did learn is holding yourself accountable is not blaming yourself for everything that's going on. It's holding yourself accountable at all times for being like, what could I have done that I didn't do? Or what did I do that I shouldn't have done? And what came from that decision, and what didn't I like that came from that decision? And how can I reverse that? And not blaming yourself for being like, oh, this is my fault, or this is my fault, this happened because I'm like this, or da da da. No, it did happen because you were like that, but that's not to say you are like that. You just didn't make better decisions than you know that you could have now. But at that time, you didn't know that. So you can't hold yourself accountable for things that you didn't know better than. You can only hold yourself accountable for knowing that you knew that you shouldn't have been doing that shit, or knowing that you should have done something that you didn't do and not doing that shit. And, for me, victimizing myself from taking all the blame growing up, like I felt like I'm the reason my parents broke up. I'm the reason why they couldn't be together. I'm the reason why my mother got depressed, because she saw me as a strength and I didn't know how to strengthen her. I'm the reason why my dad don't want to fuck with me, because he's disappointed in me, because I don't want to be what he wants me to be. So trying to be who he wants me to be, even though I'm not happy, it makes him happy, da da da. So when I started going back against that and being like, nigga, fuck you, it's just like, I'd rather you be disappointed in me making decisions for myself, because your expectations aren't, I can't fit in your expectations because they're too small. And then coming to the understanding, when you see me truly happy, realizing that you aren't happy and that's why you didn't want me to be happy, then to be fucking miserable by making other people happy. That is not a life to live. That is not a life that I wish to exist within. And that is not the reality I want to create for myself. And unfortunately, learning from my cycles, I, fall into that, and it's okay. It's okay, because you always have the opportunity from that moment that you realize it to learn and do better. And sometimes with learning, you're only aware of what it is. You only can speak on what it is, and you don't know what to do from it. But it's all a cycle it's all steps to take into reversing this, into not existing in this. And you have to be patient with it, because the more you try to force it and rush it, the easier it is for you to overlook the very important details of everything. And me thinking like this, honestly, allows me to apply that to my art and pay closer attention to the details that make it, that much better. Oh yeah, I burped. So that's just, motherfuckers that been following me know this. But yeah, allowing all of these details I'm paying attention to in life, to be applied to my art, because that is my gift. That is my source of creation. That is the closest thing that I have to knowing that God exists, because I knew that when God created earth and created man and created woman and the animals and the trees and the flowers and the birds and the bees, that like specific details had to be put into this, and you had to take your time, and you had to know that it takes fucking, yes, birds are birds. It has to take, shout out to you for knowing that. Shout out the fuck to you. That's funny. It had to take knowing that a bee has to have 1,002 hairs on it for it to look the way that a bee looks, and not only 999. You can't overlook that. And even in the moments where things that are created don't look perfect, there's still no imperfection in it, because everything is made as it is for a reason, to give the insight that it can give you. And I only got 2 minutes left on this, John, so I'm gonna wrap it up. But everything is made as it is for a reason, and that includes you. So never think that when you have to heal and be better that there's something wrong about you. Only understand that there's weaknesses that we all have that could use strengthening, and there's some things that we are strong in that need to be that strengths need to be understood in a different way, because sometimes being strong means holding everything in. Sometimes being strong means putting on a mask and not allowing people to know who you actually are. But being strong is being brave enough to be honest in all times and all ways. And standing in your truth and what you believe, even if you're the only person who believes that. And yeah, I really want everyone to heal. And by heal, I mean just like come to a certain type of acceptance of self and be at peace with it. And all the decisions that we've made had to be made in those moments out of defense and out of survival. But survival instincts aren't the only thing that that need to be applied in life. From those survival instincts that separate us from animal, we have the gift of logical thinking. And within that logical thinking of that instinctual feeling that we have, we need to make better decisions from it, and not only react out of protection of self. That is literally what separates us from animal. No emotion, no empathy, none of that separates us from animal. Only the fact that we have the power of logical thinking. So use that as your strength, because that is your strong point. Your mind is the strongest thing you have, and the body just follows after. So when you are thinking the things that you were thinking, everything else falls suit after it. And just know the power that you have in that. And have a good day, babies.